I am the technical writer at Twitch. We are currently hiring, just letting you know we do process visas. And so about me. None of my degrees are in anything to do with software. I've studied literature, theater, feminist theory, history. And I've been a technical writer for about 25 years, but I took 2 breaks, one to become a chef and one to work with dogs. I've also been a support engineer and a curriculum developer. I am a strong believer in the value of taking sabbaticals. And that actually informs my work because I feel that the things I've learned in other industries and bringing outside makes me a better communicator, makes me able to talk to more different people. And 2 more things about me. I just learned last week that I'm actually part Czech. My grandfather's grandfather was from Pilsen. And Senta might think she's old, but I am older. And I don't have children, but my dog is really cute. So why is documentation important? Duh. I mean, it's so obvious you can write this in Comic Sans. But I'm going to talk about this as I go and give you a real answer at the end. So the traditional attitudes about documentation. It's easy to implement, so write it. Well, it might be easy for you because you've been working with the code for a long time, but that doesn't mean it's easy for somebody else. It's hard to write, and developers are too busy or too lazy. This is true, but this is why you should hire professional technical writers to do your documentation, because that is what we do. And documentation takes time, and time is money. And this is true, but support calls also take time, and disgruntled customers who give up on your product cost even more money. I made a note on this so I didn't forget. A 2013 survey by Programmable Web looked at important factors in an API, and documentation was actually ranked #1. So there you go. Developers actually want it. So what makes good developer documentation? API documentation is a concise reference. It provides developers with the information they need to work with another application. If you're ever asked that in a job interview, feel free to steal that sentence. It's also, if you think about the API as a product, the documentation is actually the user interface for that product. So you need good organization and examples, explanations. You want it to be consistent. The documentation for each call should have the same things. An interactive way to try API calls within the doc. You want a comment section, and you want links to support resources. So everything is in one place for people to find it. APIs are built to be consumed. So an API documentation needs to be consumed. And your documentation needs to cater to developers who are your users, but it also needs to cater to decision makers. Sometimes the business people who are deciding whether or not to buy your product are not as technical. So you need the documentation also to speak to them. Things you want to have are authentication, you want to cover status codes, error messages, resources, and then terms of use, because that's got to be somewhere, because no one really, reads the TOC, and changelog, because users just want to go to your website, look at one page, okay, nothing changed, fine, I don't have to know about it. They're not going to read the whole thing ever. They're going to go to your doc to solve a problem. Benefits of good doc are improved user adoption of your product, increased product awareness, easier maintenance, and reduced support time and cost. So who has the best developer doc? Call out anything. Anybody use developer doc that you like? Okay. The Dev Portal Award nominees for 2019, they haven't picked a winner yet, are TomTom, Quali, and Genesis. I actually know one of the tech writers at Genesis, and I'm really happy for him. And the other usual suspects include Stripe, Heroku, and Twilio. So if you want to go look at great developer doc, I'll be honest, go to them. Here's what we have at Twitch. Can you open the website, please? And I'll be honest, we're not in this list of best developer docs yet. So here is our API reference. And if you could do me a favor and just click on any endpoint, it doesn't matter. We have example requests, but they're not interactive. It's actually faked. We made it to look like docs, but this was before I joined. It was built to look like other doc sites, but it doesn't function the way they do. And functionality is much more important than looks. This is a big part of my product. Just click on another endpoint for fun. So yeah, here's another one. And the Twitch API, incidentally, is for people who modify Twitch. These are people who build extensions to the game or mods. If you're a Twitch user, you know what those things are. We also have that sometimes. We all know, you really don't want your website to do that. So that's who's using our API. They're external developers. We have internal APIs also at Twitch. Those are not very well documented. We don't have any technical writers doing that yet. I think we're trying to hire one now. So yeah, there we go. That's okay, I'll go back or up. So what is our process that we use now? It's pretty kludgy. We have Google Docs. Developers write things in Google Docs. I write things in Google Docs. We pass them back and forth, and we comment on them. We use a tool that I won't name because they're really nice people in a very small company. They're just not really built for developer documentation. It's really a tool that's meant for a more static site, like a marketing site. And it's not even real Markdown. It's a pseudo Markdown that's a combination of Markdown and front page. And it's so confusing that actually editing the code is really hard, and I once took down the whole site when I tried, so now I just use their graphical UI. It's really difficult. It makes things take a really long time. So issues. So there's an enormous amount of engineering time that goes into something that I should be able to do by myself, that any technical writer should. Developers can't copy and paste the code and use it because this Markdown front page hybrid we have puts all sorts of random extra characters in it if you copy and paste it. You want people to be able to copy and paste your sample code so they can play with it. And right now we don't have a consistent feedback place. I read the developer forums, I check our Discord every day, and then people just come up to us and tell us stuff. When I was in Orly Airport changing planes to come here, a guy saw my backpack and said, "Oh, you work at Twitch. I'm having a problem with this extension." And I took notes, and as soon as I got a Wi-Fi signal, I actually emailed the right person. But there should really be a better support mechanism. There should have been a page where I could say, "Could you just please go there and let us know?" And also, cranky technical writer, because I would like things to run more smoothly. So we're currently making changes, and I'm working with a terrific developer who's building it for me. We are moving our API reference to the Open API spec, which I will get to more of that in a moment. We're updating our look and feel of the site so that it looks more like these sites that are the best. We're improving our navigation. I'm putting together a beta program for the docs, just like we have a beta program with customers for our software. So now when they get beta software, they're going to have documentation with it, and I'm going to get early feedback. And that's going to make things better for the public. And streamlining the feedback process, even after publication, there's going to be a button. Need to tell us feedback? People can click it, and it will send me email. Open API is a set of tools to help programmers generate client or server code and install self-generated documentation for web services. A quote from their site that I really like. The ability of APIs, how do I go back? The ability of APIs to describe their own structure is the root of all awesomeness in Open API. Okay, so anyway, I really like that quote because it's cool, it's fun, it's, what you want. Open API allows you to describe your entire API, including endpoints and operations on each endpoint, operational parameters, authentication methods, and contact information, terms of use, and all that. You also may have heard of Swagger, and then some people tell you, oh, now they're the same thing, they've merged. That is sort of true. Swagger is the largest framework for designing APIs. And the Swagger framework uses the Open API spec. Swagger enables development across the entire life cycle, which includes documentation, design, and testing. If you're using this, you're actually doing documentation first before code. It's an entirely new method of thinking about things. It also means you're never releasing software that doesn't have doc. So if you're a design-first team, you will use the Swagger to generate a server stub for your API. And you will use CodeGen also to generate client libraries. And it covers over 40 languages. It used to just be REST. That's no longer true. It's much bigger. And the Swagger UI can generate interactive documentation. So where we have that picture of code, if you're using the Swagger OpenAPI, you could actually click on that code and it would do something. So the results of what we're working on so far, and remember, it's not released yet. You've seen our site. Our beta users are much happier with the new UX. Internally, engineering managers are hired with me needing less of their engineers' time to say, hey, it broke again, or hey, it's down again. The doc has more detail and better examples as I work on each endpoint. The doc has interactive code samples, and the tech writer is much happier. So, squad goals, because I work at Twitch, we actually call things squad goals. We have increased user satisfaction, fewer and shorter calls for support, more people using our APIs because we want people modding Twitch. We like extensions, we like mods. And that way we're getting more and better. Some really big companies write them, but also any individual person who wants to can. That's the cool part about Twitch. So, in conclusion, documentation is the foundation for a good developer experience. And that was the duh. All right, this is how you can watch our site to see it improve, and how you can reach me, and on my dog, whose Instagram is much cuter than mine. And now, questions.
Thank you so much. I want to say, if I can start with that what you do is so super important. Like for all of you, basically, I'm also in software engineering, like teaching students, teaching software engineering, because besides being in Chiquitas, I'm a professor of software engineering at Masaryk University here. And what is one of the things I teach my students first is that as a developer, you actually go 1:10 ratio of writing the code against reading the code. So whenever you develop anything, you spend 10 times more time reading the code of others or yourself than writing. So then actually the more easier the code is to understand, the easier it is to understand what functions I can use, what things I can use. The more time you save, the better quality you build in your products, and the bigger community you can actually include in the process. So this is really wonderful. I want to thank you for just doing the job already.
Thank you for thanking.
Yeah, and then the question. So again, we would like to have a question from the app as well as the audience. Let's start with the audience. Yes.
One. Okay. So first of all, thank you for the presentation, and I would like to ask, what is the structure of your tech writers team? Do you have one tech writer per team, developer
I'm
team?
the only tech writer in the whole company.
Wow.
The structure of our team is me. So I am here, so nothing is being written right now.
Okay, that's the huge work. Thanks.
But I did spend some time every night, like talking on Slack with my coworkers.
Yeah, and this is actually second question that we would like to ask you, and that is actually, how does it work? Understanding the code. So, do you talk to developers? Do you try to understand the code? How big effort it is to actually describe what the code is doing?
One of the things I'm really lucky about, I only joined the company in September, but I implemented immediately a requirement for specs, and they write them.
That's wonderful.
So I pretty much test everything myself, and then if I can't figure it out, I go say, okay, I don't understand what you wrote here.
That's really good.
Yeah, we're largely a Go shop, so my first 2 weeks at work were spent learning Go. I had never seen it before my interview. And it was very funny in my technical interview. They said, okay, we see you've never used Go, so here's some code, ask us intelligent questions about it, which I thought was an enormously fair way to interview someone who doesn't know it.
But it worked out.
It works, yeah.
Yeah, it's very good. Then another thing, is there anything specific when you interact with developers that you would say that maybe documenting something else than code would be different? Are developers specific in any way?
Well, developers are people. So as a tech writer, the important thing to do is be agnostic. The tech writers that are the most successful are the ones that say, I don't care how you give me my information, I just need it. So I'm fine if people want to chat in Slack, I'm fine if they want to send email, I'm fine if they want to sit down and talk to me. That really doesn't matter to me.
It's very cool. And one more question from the audience. So any question, we can still take it. Yes, there is a hand over there.
Hi, Ilona. I have a question. What are the advantages of doing the documentation before, like, creating the code itself? Because I'm used to, like, firstly code and then, according to this, get the documentation. So what is the advantage of this setup? Thanks.
The advantages are, first of all, for the customers, because you know nothing will ever be released without doc. It's also a good advantage for development teams, because everybody knows what the code's about. And nobody has to bother to write code comments because it's got doc. This only works for API doc. It doesn't work for end-user documentation or documentation describing UIs or anything like that.
Yeah, great. And one last question would come from me. Do you also interact with testers? And is it like the people who test the code, develop the code? Is it the same people? Is like, what's the interaction?
At Twitch, we don't have a QA team. Everybody tests their own everything.
Yeah.
At other companies where I've worked, ideally, documentation is written and goes to QA with the product. This does not always happen. Tech writers tend to file a lot of bugs because we see things early.
Okay, wonderful. And so I think that the closing question would be, like, maybe your perspective on joining tech. How did that happen for you when it first became appealing to you to join tech?
So I was working on my PhD when my dissertation director passed away. And I thought, ooh, I don't really want to start over somewhere else. I'll get a job. So I basically read O'Reilly's Essential System Administration and bluffed my way into a job as a Unix sysadmin. After I'd been at the company for about a year, my manager said to me, so I've looked you up and you've done a lot of publications when you were an academic. Have you ever thought about technical writing? And I said, what's that? And mind you, this was in the mid-90s. Like I said, I'm old. And then he told me what it was, and I'm like, yeah, that does sound right. So he actually mentored me and helped me make that career change. Because it was a way to combine the fact that I'm good at writing and explaining things. I don't have the patience to be a coder. I'm really grateful to those of you that do.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you all.